My name is Krista Wright, and I'm a project manager with Farm Management Canada. Woohoo! I want to start off by thanking MMP for the sponsorship of this session. What an exciting day we have had so far. Now, on to our next session with Stuart Pearson and Travis Hopcott. A little bit about Stu, in case you don't know about him. Stu is MMP's National Leader of Crop Services. Based in Edmonton, Stuart brings more than 30 years of experience in agriculture, specializing in the grain, oil, seed, and pulse industry to his role. Passionate about the agriculture industry, he grew up on a farm and continues to participate as a producer. This experience allows Stuart to relate firsthand to what Canadian agriculture producers face in their operations, and gives him greater insights into how to help producers overcome challenges and achieve their business goals. Stu has extensive experience as an agriculture business advisor and has helped clients from coast to coast deal with a wide range of issues, including succession, risk management planning, tax planning, digital adaptation, and much more. Stuart is dedicated to the community, including serving on the Farm Management Canada Board of Directors and on the Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute. Stuart is also a proud member of the Canadian Association of Farm Advisor. Thank you, Stu. A little bit about Travis. As a part owner of Hopcott Farms, Travis has been involved in various aspects of their family-owned and operated business since 2004. Along with his sister and brother, they manage a butcher, market, bistro, raise, process cattle, grow 72 acres of cranberries for Ocean Spray Cranberries, host weddings, events, and are always looking for opportunities to provide unique experiences on their 90-plus-year-old family farm. Their passion for agriculture, sustainability, and people has earned them Canada's Outstanding Young Farmer of the Year award in 2023. Stuart and Travis, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Feel very important after those big introductions.
I feel like I'm in the interviewee chair, though.
Yeah. You know what? Let's move these chairs up a little closer, so we don't look like we're so far apart, and then we can get at it here. So, now was your presentation going to be? Is it ready to go? Yeah. Okay. Good. And you'll be able to see it there. Maybe we should switch so you can see it. There.
Yeah.
We've never done this before.
We practiced before.
Okay. So thanks, Travis, for agreeing to do this session today. And I think one of our key goals of this session is to kind of bring some insights into all of you as from somebody who's actually been through some succession planning and continues to work on it. And so that's really our intent today, is to give you some insights as to what it's like. Travis is going to share some of that. I'm also going to share some insights from my own succession planning on my farm, and also from some of the experiences I've had with clients as we kind of work through this. So I think we were supposed to have about an hour, but would you like us to get us back on time, Heather? Okay, so we should be done, including Q&A, we should be done by 3:30. Is that correct? Okay, so we're gonna catch them up.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so maybe to start off, Travis, what we'll do here is we'll talk a little bit about, there was a bit of an intro on you at the start, but let's let you tell a little bit more about yourself and Hopcott Farms, and just so the audience gets a little bit more understanding of who you are and where you came from. So if you want to go ahead on that, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So yeah, we thought instead of just us talking, pictures would be more entertaining than just listening to us. So just a quick slideshow of what we do at Hopcott Farms. I can drive a tractor, but I can't use a clicker. Okay. So so myself, Travis Hopcott, so we're a third generation farm. My role on the farm is, as you can tell, cranberries or horticulture is my focus. Oversee the workers from Mexico, and then my other roles are as a balance of strategy and growth. And then of course I work with my brother on the left. I have another slideshow that shows my sister, so she's just as pivotal. So my sister is the general manager at the store, and that's just her on the bottom left. So that's just the entire family, with my beautiful wife there on the bottom right, and my brother and my entire family up top there. And that's just a bit about us, and a bit of the history of the farm, if we want to do that. Yeah. So my papa there, so that's my dad on his lap, and he was 5 years old. So he bought the farm in 1932 for $9,000 back then, so 105 acres. So thank you, Papa, good investment. And where we're located, it's a town called Pitt Meadows. So we're the star on the right. You can't see Abbotsford off the screen there. You can kind of see the YVR runway there, just to show you where we are in relation to Vancouver. Pitt Meadows itself, a huge blueberry producer. About, I think, 20% of the province comes out of Pitt Meadows. But where we are in Vancouver, obviously, huge population. So within 40-minute radius, we have about 2 to 2.5 million people within a 40-minute drive. So we try to take advantage of that by, as with some of the ventures that were mentioned. I can keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah? Okay.
Tell us till you're done telling us all about your farm.
Okay. I feel like, this is like a pitch here. But so this is the aerial shot of the farm. The main farm on the left, so that's all the cranberries. That's what takes 2/3 of it, and the rest is the feedlot where we raise, process, and retail all of our beef there. It started off as a dairy until Canada adopted the supply and managed quota system in the 50s, and my papa's just own philosophy didn't agree with it, so he left it. That was his decision. And then it was a feedlot right up until the late 90s, and then that's when we really started diversifying. So Ocean Spray was looking for acreage, so that's when we transitioned 72 acres of corn into cranberries. Then really ever since then, we've diversified since. So we had a corn maze attraction, that's the property on the top right. We did that for 18 seasons, agritourism attraction. When being able to host weddings and events, when that opened up, we transitioned to that. So now we just do weddings and events. And then really since 2000, we've added a store. That's now 15,000 square feet, and our own processing facility. So we can process about 5,000-6,000 head a year. And we just passed the 90 employee mark. And so we have a pretty powerful, amazing team, as this picture illustrates. The only way I could be here is because of our amazing team, and we're pretty dedicated and passionate. So just a bit more just of each venture that we got into. So this is the beef side. So we go through about 1,000 head a year. So it's no added hormones, no steroid. We dry age all of our beef. So as compared to wet age, so dry aging allows the natural enzymes to tenderize the meat. Cranberries, I can give you every useless fact there is to know about cranberries. I enjoy them. They're a great tourism attraction. We have tours for the public visit us every year. We had 500 visitors from around Vancouver visit us, and it's always amazing how many have going into the bog as on their bucket list. So some have heard this joke before. What do you do to support someone's bucket list? You charge them, right? And so that's what we do. So for an extra fee, they go into the bog, but it's a platform for us to tell our story and a bit of history and what goes into producing cranberries. And these are just quickly some shots of the store. So we wanted this sort of chateau look. We wanted people to think quality before they even got into the store. And then weddings and events and all that, and the processing facility. yeah, so that's just a brief summary of what we do at Hopcott's.
And I was noticing on LinkedIn, if you follow Travis on LinkedIn, you can keep up with all the things they're doing on their farm. But I noticed you had a dinner served in the bog
Yep.
this year. Tell us about that.
So we're always looking for new tourism events, and so we had a long table lunch in the bog in with the cranberries there, which made for amazing shots. And so everything was cranberry themed, soups and salads and different drinks. So we had ones from media from Vancouver get the experience, we're all about adding experience. So whether it's that or other long tables or barbecue fests or butcher workshops, we're all about entertaining, but at the same time educating if we can.
It looked interesting for sure. I'm from the prairies, so dinner time is noon and supper time is supper. So I apologize for that. It was lunch by city
West
standards,
Coast,
right?
yeah.
Or West Coast standards.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Travis, for giving us a bit of an idea of what the farm looks like and where it came from. In 1932, so we're getting close to 100 years coming up on your farm. So there's definitely a legacy with the Hopcott family farm, right?
Mm.
And in agriculture, legacy and family, business is a super important part for a lot of us. There's a lot of pride that we have in our family farms and whatnot. So obviously when there's been a few transitions that have happened on your farm, and now you've gone through one more recently for yourself and your brother and your wife, and I can't remember if your brother's married or not, but tell us a little bit about, you have been through a transition. How long ago did that happen? And just have you got to the point yet that you feel like you're finished that plan, or is it still ongoing?
Yeah, well, as everyone knows, a succession plan is like a living organism. It's dynamic. It's ever changing. It's never perfect. And I wanted to emphasize that so last year I know what you thought when you heard that's Canada's outstanding young farmer. And I'm sorry, it was a bad year. Say that, I guess. But the point was, yes, we won Canada's outstanding young farmer, but we're nowhere near perfect. And so we've had to work through many challenges. And so I think we started probably about 8 years ago, and we've implemented different steps. But we're probably, I would say, halfway through the process.
Okay. And how many people would you say have been involved in that process since the time you started?
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were the sole owners of the farm, and then they had 4 kids, 3 of which were involved. I invited all of them, and they're not here for some reason, probably because I was going to talk about them. But we have a really good relationship with each other. Each took a different route to the farm. Currently it's my parents, my sister, my brother, and myself.
And as you were working through the succession planning process, did you bring other professionals in to assist in the process?
Many. So we went through the UBC Sauder School of Business for family enterprises. We used longtime friends that were their career involved as an arbitrator for different unions to facilitate our meetings, consultants, different workshops, Farm Management Canada being one of them, InnoCenter. They're based out of Quebec. They're a business advisor, not-for-profit that was funded by Farm Credit Canada, and then, of course, our own accounting firm. So we've used every option out there.
And as far as your experience goes, did you feel that went well to have all those different people helping you with that process? Do you wish you'd have had more? Do you wish you'd have had less? What was your experience?
Yeah, what I appreciated, what went well is that it got all of us in the room. And it led to myself and our siblings achieving ownership, and it allowed my parents to transition from living off the farm income to receiving more of what they need to retire. So it laid all of that out. And like I said, it took 8 to 10 years just to get to this. So yes, it was helpful.
Like I'll just share maybe a little bit of my own experience related to that same question. And myself being a CPA, I didn't have to bring an accountant to the succession plan process because I could provide that on my own. But we did have a lawyer involved in our process, and we actually had a succession planning specialist involved as well, somebody who is used to dealing with kind of I'll call him the quarterback on the whole planning process. And like these things, if you haven't done one yet for your farm or you haven't been involved in one, these are pretty time-consuming undertakings to go through. And it's super important that you take the time and actually do it right. It's not, I would never recommend that you cut the corners and rush the process and do a good enough plan, because there's a number of things that come up through the process that if you don't take the time to cross your T's and dot your I's, usually on the back end of that plan, there's a lot of heartburn and a lot of people, I find a lot of people regret that if they don't take the time to do it right. So some experiences that I've had with ones maybe that were rushed or didn't follow a good process, and maybe didn't involve enough professionals or help where it was needed, where you end up with, after the fact, once people have a chance to think about it a bit more, you have siblings starting to fight over things that they didn't feel like they got consulted on, and you have situations where maybe either the parents who are exiting or the new generation coming in didn't feel that they were involved enough or consulted enough on what the final outcome of the succession planning process was, and therefore we get 3, 5, 7, 10 years down the road and things are not going well. They're not going as smoothly as they could be. And so, it's you've been working on yours for 8 years now, and you're still working on it, right? And that's just for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with this. That's not uncommon. You're right; it is a living and breathing thing. And as you work through your succession plan from your parents' generation, you will start to move into a succession plan at some point for your kids. And maybe you've already started thinking about that. So it is an ongoing thing, and if you do address it, if you take it seriously and you address it in the right time frame, it's a much more, you'll be much more successful with it. But that said, I've experienced plans that we've put together in as quickly as 6 months, because it had to be done in 6 months because maybe it was left too long. And I've also experienced plans that have taken up to 5 years to get to what we would consider some sort of conclusion on them. And none of those, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's whatever works best for you and your family. And the ones that take longer, I find quite often get to a better result. It gives people time to think about it. But in order to do that, if you're going to take 5 years or 8 years or longer, you need to start early. You can't leave it until it's too late to be able to do that. So I think you guys must have had some good advice, or you just knew yourselves to get started on it soon or earlier to be able to get as many years as you've had into it, and things are obviously going well. Would you agree?
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that is a succession plan, sometimes it's avoided because it's viewed as an emotional subject, involves individuals' feelings. I don't think it has to be if it's done, like you said, if it's done with plenty of time, communication is there, family is involved. yeah, like just to add to that, the longer, the more you give it, the more a priority it is. You don't have to, all these different parts of family dynamics aren't as influential. You're not making these emotional, quick decisions. So yeah, no, fully agree.
I have a quick question for you, and we did prepare for this, but I'm gonna go off script a little bit on you, Travis.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure you'll know the answer. So 1932 is when your farm was started, at least the Pitt Meadows version of it.
Yeah.
When you are doing this succession plan that you're working on now, does that ever come up in the discussions between you and your brother and your parents and everybody else in the family who's involved? Like, does it come up? Do you talk about 1932 and what would have been your grandfather or great?
Yeah. The conversation of how the farm began. Yeah, definitely. We hear stories. Well, we remind ourselves as we're constantly telling our story to others, and just the work and that my papa put in. My papa is probably my favorite human being, because he was a man's man, and what I mean by that is that he was a hard worker, but he was very peace-loving, empathetic guy. So he worked well with others. So he died when I was about 18, 19. So I had a good opportunity to get to know him, and so. Yeah, there's not a day usually I don't think about him on the farm, and we always say if he saw the farm today, like he would freak out. We'd just be blown away what it was when he left. So when we talk about succession, there's a natural respect, obviously, of what he started. That we've really we're being put in a position that's very rare, and yeah, we don't miss that. We understand that.
And my follow-up question to that is, for your generation, do you feel any pressure because your papa started this in 1932? Do you feel pressure to make sure this thing is successful, and both for his sake, your parents' sake, and then also, do you feel any pressure that you need to keep this going for your kids?
Yes and no. So we understand what's being handed to us on a platter, basically. My mind was always, as long as we don't mess it up, and so that is my focus. But I came back to the farm because I'm to provide or produce something that families trust to provide their own families. There's very few occupations out there, and farmers. I just love being a farmer. Yes, there's pressure, but to be a farmer, they are the most, like, probably the most down-to-earth, hardworking, sincere people I know are farmers, because the word entrepreneur gets thrown around a lot, and I think farmers have always been that tenacity, that grit, that tug and pull of not afraid to take risks, but afraid to lose it all. And farmers, to me, are also the word hero gets thrown around a lot. And I think there's 5 heroes in this world, and I think of first responders, doctors, nurses, teachers, and farmers. I think they're everything else. Everything, not to disrespect any other occupation, but everything's a byproduct of that. We have to be safe, be healthy, and be educated and be fed. And so yes, there's pressure, but at the same time, yeah, I want to be there and to be able to keep this going.
I mean, that's one of the things that we come across when we are working with our clients on succession planning is when you get farms that have been around as long as your farm, and some of them have been around longer, there is some pressure that the young generation feels in terms of the family legacy. And so one of the things that we would say around doing a good job of planning and including into your succession plan, a bit of business plan in there as well, is, giving that farm the highest chance of success going forward, making sure that there's enough revenue generation there for the retiring generation to take what they need to retire, but also to keep the farm going and expand and whatever else you would like to do with it going forward. So it is the legacy thing. It can, some people feel it more than others, but it can be a one thing that for those of you in the room who might be younger, you might be thinking that as well. And for those of you who are in the room that might be older, to keep that in mind, that your kids might be thinking that way. They might be feeling more pressure than you realize in that situation.
Yeah, I think our experience is unique, where my brother and I joke, and my sister, that we're city kids raised on the farm. We're just being so close to a metropolitan area. And my dad, his fear of anything happening to us on the farm was far greater than actually having us involved at a very young age on the farm. So we were introduced to it quite late, and just how he raised us, never pressured us. He's if you want, if you want to continue, we'll support it. So yeah, in our parents' case, it was something that they just allowed us to choose or explore. So we're thankful for that, actually, in hindsight.
Excellent. Anything you would have done differently that over the last 8 years that you would share with the group to say, what, we learned a lesson here or there?
Yeah, it's a lot. So probably communication more, that setting clear expectations, proper minutes, and with action items. That would have helped. Having a neutral, third-party, trusted advisor would help. No family, friends, anything like that. And we have, and hopefully that's done early, and with an understanding of when decisions are made, how it affects the rest of the family members. Because we did get into a situation where before we started this whole process, is when my other sister, my fourth sister, the fourth one, and her husband, unfortunately, they got a lot very quickly, and so the family dynamics weren't quite considered, how their goals lined up with our goals, and the short story is that they had to be bought out. And I've asked my entire family; they've agreed with me telling you this, so I'm not throwing my dirty laundry on you here. But yeah, it was not pretty. But we love each other. We talk to each other all the time. The relationship is there, but there is so much that could have been avoided if what I just mentioned was put in place, shareholder agreements, all that sort of thing.
Yeah. Formality is your friend in business, even and especially in family business. I should say everybody, a lot of people take that for granted. Well, it's a family farm. We don't need this agreement. We don't need that agreement. Agreements are for when people don't agree.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go back to what does the agreement say. And so, yeah, formality is your friend, and then communication you mentioned. It's just so important. You have to be communicating. Go ahead. To help you do what? So there's a number of organizations out there that are offering the service. I'll give myself a shameless plug. Ours is one of them, but we're not the only ones. And so there might even be a few others in the room. Is there anybody else in the room? There you go. So yeah, there's a number of people out there who are doing it, and a lot of us have invested a lot of time in getting trained on it and understanding it. And so, yeah, you shouldn't have trouble finding somebody if you want. Yeah, I mean, if you're already down the road a certain distance, and I mean, sure, there could be certain things that are irreversible, but I mean, I would hope not. I think yeah. So now you're you're in a situation where you've got tension in the family, or you've burned some bridges, type of thing. Yeah. I mean, I always laugh about this because I shouldn't say I laugh about it, but I laugh about the fact that when I was in university, I took you had to take some electives, and I was doing an accounting program, and they recommended we take psychology as electives, and I went, that sounds like an awful waste of time. I'm going to take economics because that would better align with what I wanted to do for business. And that's my biggest regret from university, that I didn't take all the psychology courses I could take, because when you get into this stuff, it's a lot of psychology related topics, right? You're dealing with emotions and feelings, and you're trying to understand and read people, and so yeah. So I'm not going to profess that any of us are psychologists. Maybe you guys are that stuck your hand up. Yes. So, but in some circumstances, if you've got a good advisor working with you, maybe they can connect you with some people who can get into some of those issues that if they're really bad. But yeah, you're not the only person who's got tension in your family. If you want to get together later, I can tell you all sorts of stories around that. But yeah, and I think that's one of the key things that we're talking about here today is if you do a good job of this as a family, if you do it from the start well, you can avoid a bunch of that, so you can still have your family gatherings and celebrate holidays together. And like Travis says, he still loves his sister because they got it sorted out, right? Yeah, I mean, I think anything's changeable from a tax point of view. It might cost you some more money to do it, depending on what you're trying to change. Both from cost you money, both professional fees, and it might also cost you some tax to be able to fix something. But if it needs to be done, it needs to be done, right? And that's one thing I wanted to ask Travis about as well, was around the cost. I mean, there's always, if you're going to engage professionals to help you with this kind of stuff, there's going to be bills that show up for that. And I guess before I give my opinion on it, what's your opinion on the cost around that? Given the importance of the topic.
Yeah, I just go further with your question. Succession planning, I obviously think it's bad business if you don't consider it. It will cost you more, and be it significant tax or insufficient funding for your parents or non-farming children. But when you invite an advisor, we have this saying, let the experts give their expertise, and we rely heavily on that on our farm. But just because they're an expert, don't think that they are the end-all, be-all. I would say, and to be frank, any advisor we've ever had, we've worked with different fractional CFOs as well. Half of them have probably worked out for us. Not that they're not smart people, but maybe it's their style, how they communicate. So, like, if I would definitely encourage, not just facilitate, but if they can provide choices, case studies, that sort of thing. So just one piece of advice for finding a good advisor. But anyway, it's definitely worth the cost. You're not protecting yourself if you don't consider it. Surprises can come up all the time. Again, I mentioned emotions, and we have to recognize that this is hard, but the outcome with the same people is much more worse if we don't. So it's just like we invest in other facets of the farm, we obviously want to invest in people, and that includes our own family.
Yeah, and I think just to add to the cost bit, I mean, I know the reaction sometimes that we would get when we would quote this service to somebody is, oh, I can't believe that it would cost that much money. But I'm going to steal something from another advisor who's a member of, one of the founding members of the CAFA group in Canada, and that was Don McConnell out of Saskatoon. And he always said, like, you know, if you are going to do a succession plan, and even if it costs you 5, 10, 15, 20,000, whatever it's costing you to do that, you got to remember that you're making an investment in your family's future to do that. And, you know, there's not a lot of hesitation to go out and spend millions of dollars on another piece of land or a piece of equipment or whatnot, but there seems to be this reluctance to make an investment in making sure that the farm makes it from 1932 to 2032, right, and beyond, right? And so some of the discussions that once I think producers get their mind around that, it changes the dynamic of, okay, no, this is important and it is worth making that investment. And then the other side of it, which Travis alluded to, is that not making that investment can get way more expensive. If you want to see that bill go into the 6 figures, just get everybody fighting and get lawyers involved, and away you go, right? You're going to be into some big fees in that case, and we see that as well, and it's unfortunate when that happens, but that's life. So
Yeah. I told you I had a stat with regards to Pitt Meadows. So there's 215 farms in Pitt Meadows, and they're getting old. They're in their early 60s. But despite that, so they just redid their ag viability strategy from 2000. And they just finished one recently. So they found out only 20% of farms have a written, many have a succession plan, but a written succession plan in place. So 1 in 5. It's disappointing. It's especially considering where we're at with the demographic of farmers. So hopefully, hopefully that'll change.
well, you're doing better than the national average. It's about 12% nationally
really?
that have a succession plan. So
Go Pitt Meadows.
go Pitt Meadows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the average age of the farmers being 56, it doesn't really line up with that. You would think that there would be a bigger percentage of farms with written succession plans given that statistic. Right?
Yeah,
So,
and I was a student recruiter for UFE like 2 decades ago, and at that time at least there was a stat where it was 10% of 3rd generation farms were continuing to farm. For whatever reasons that may be, but I think this succession topic just adds to the sustainability story. We talk a lot about environment, but the fact that my sister and my brother we're farming together on the same property, same business, that's allowed this to keep going as it has. So anyway.
Any advice that you would have for the folks here listening today, whether they're young or old or no matter what side of the coin they're on with the succession planning?
So when you said you're going to ask that question, that list just grew and grew and grew. So I'll try and be concise as possible. But my best advice is that succession planning is more than just transferring assets. It's about a shared vision for the farm, and so approaching it in that direction with empathy, patience, and professionalism, understanding their perspective, understanding what they want out of the farm, what do they expect of you. So just making clear communication. How are they willing to support you in that regard? So that's just one advice I had. But even as the younger ones in the family, just focus on what you can control. So personal development, show your commitment by looking to improve maybe record keeping or parts of the farm that hasn't been introduced, maybe marketing or technology. But I always go back to just please don't be entitled. Don't be that. Just ask yourself. Don't say, what am I getting out of this? More so, what am I putting into it? And that would alleviate perhaps some back and forth between I'm going to say the two parties, but mom and dad and the parents, or mom and dad and the kids.
Great. I would 100% agree with your advice based on my experiences as well. Anybody have any questions that they want to ask Travis while we got him here on the hot seat?
Yeah. So your last question, so there were times when a facilitator would help us to move forward. So instead of them allowing us to make the solution, I realize that they can't make that decision, but if they could at least provide choices or case studies, just some type of guidance, because the chances of the family figuring it out themselves, I don't think you can do this without help. And so if you have the right advisor, hopefully they can provide that. But yeah, and the first question was how to get it on paper.
Want me to take that?
Yep, you get paid more than me to do that. So.
I mean, I would love to. I don't know if that stat is in the stats can numbers or in any of the other ones that we've done at Farm Management Canada, but it'd be interesting to know what percentage of people say that it's in their head, right? Which is great until they're not here anymore. Who else's head is it in, right? So that's one of the things that we would say is that's great that it's in your head, but what happens when your head isn't functioning anymore? And how are we supposed to know what it was? So we do use that one quite often in that discussion. The other piece of it is, when we're talking about having it written down, is it forces you to think it through in more detail. So having a plan in your head might actually only be 5% of what you actually need to be thinking about to have a proper plan. So what about the other 95%? And when you start asking people questions, well, okay, in the plan that's in your head, what are you doing around, can the farm make enough money to pay your retirement and keep the farm going? Oh, well, I don't know. I didn't think about that. Okay, well, that might be something you want to put in the plan, right? What does your will actually say, right? Oh, I haven't done a will. Well, we might want to do a will as part of the plan, right? So, there's things like that I think you just have to keep challenging the person to say, I would say, I don't think I could honestly say that it would ever be a good idea to just say, I'm going to have my succession plan in my head. It's just way too risky and not going to be a good idea for anybody involved, right? The other thing that writing it down does is, if you're willing to share it with everybody involved, is it gives full transparency as to what the plan is, right? So now everybody's working towards a common goal. And it doesn't allow you to change your mind as easily. Because if you're going to change your mind, you got to change it on paper too. So.
And yeah, one more thing, just the how part. Obviously, probably the young ones are going to have to be the driver in that. And so I would start small, build trust, ease into conversations, sharing your vision about the farm, sharing the intentions, and on the point of starting small, like I mentioned, updating farm records, improving efficiency. And once the parents see the benefits of collaboration, maybe they'd be open to a discussion on more on that topic, but my 2 cents.
Oh, I didn't realize that we were, okay. How are your parents handling the transition? Well, I guess that's for you.
Yeah. How and are they learning to let go of some things easier than others? So, yes, my parents. Well, my mom could care less. she, she's uh, she's been a city person her whole life. She loves making her fudge, and that's it. So my dad, are they? My dad. That's a funny thing. So even we have. I have the, let's say, authority over cranberries as an example, or if any of us have the authority, it would not change how he views the farm, how he continually drives us, like, why are you doing this, or why didn't you think of that? So so I'm not looking at it from, is he taking a step back? We never want him to take a step back, but is he allowing us to take the reins and make bad decisions? He's definitely allowing us to do that. So I would say he's handling it as best as he can.
I could take a stab at the second one. When do you recommend that we start the farm transition? You know, in that situation, I would say you're in a good spot to be getting going on it. Whoever's question that was, you know, you should be having discussions. You're in your 20s. If you're the young person and you're in your 20s, your parents are in your 50s. I mean, the succession planning should be started now. And again, it doesn't have to be finished in 6 months. Maybe it takes 5 years or 8 years or whatever for it to fully get implemented. But the sooner you start it, the better chance you have of getting to a result that everybody's going to be happy with. And the more time you allow yourself as well, the easier it is to deal with any sort of emotional challenges that you're going to stumble into along the way, because it gives people time to think. So I would say now, if that, for whoever asked that question. Do you want me to take that one too, or you want to go for it?
Well, yeah. So approaching succession plan when two separate family farms are involved. Yeah, that's you. I can't speak to that.
That wasn't the case for you.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
You know, like, so I've been through this with a few different families, and I'm assuming what this question is getting at is if you've got, you know, say, let's just, for example, say there's two brothers and now they have kids, and so now you've got cousins and whatnot, and maybe you're running multiple operations, but you're kind of, you know, on paper, but you're running one big farm. We see lots of that happening. The key there is you need to be inclusive of, to start with at least anyway, you need to be inclusive of everybody involved in the farm. So if you got two families involved, you got to start the process by talking with both families. You can't be off doing something on your own. It's so dangerous to do that because, you know, that's where you're going to cause tension and you're going to cause problems. If one of the families doesn't want to engage, once you've done that, once you've actually started to say we want to talk about this, then you can always figure out a way to go on your own with that and how you would do that. But start it with everybody at the table, because there's nothing worse than what the other family finding out that you've been busy doing things and didn't bother to consult them. The trust factor goes down significantly amongst the whole group. So that would be my advice on that one. And
would you consider, like in your experience, the successful ones, they have these family business rules among each other, clear expectations. They have different, perhaps, family business meetings and family council meetings, which involves family that are not involved in the farm. Have you heard of anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. It depends on the size of the operation, I guess, and you know, I would say it can be good and it can be bad. It just depends on who you bring into that discussion. So proceed with caution on that one, but definitely, I mean, Cargill is a family business, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know who Cargill is, Google it, and you can read all about it. They're one of the giants in the ag industry.
Yeah, our abattoir, as I mentioned, is 5,000-6,000 head a year. They do that in a day. So
Yeah, there you go.
they're pretty big.
But that's a family business. Ford Motor Company was a family business at one time. And still has family members involved. So like, yeah, getting external, as your company gets bigger, I think getting more external people involved is probably a good way to do it. Is this one are you or me?
So, I mean, I'm no expert in this, but just my opinion is that I think there's more family. I think it is more difficult because you're having more family involved. Land is more expensive. It's not as available. It's a more complicated world. You're dealing with macroeconomic challenges. So, yeah, it is. Does it feel that way? Yeah, and I think rightfully so.
I'll give you my dad's answer to this one. When my dad went through succession with his father, my grandpa didn't have anything, and he had to divide it amongst 4 boys. So it was real easy. Nobody got anything, really, at the end of the day. It changed when my dad was transitioning to myself. Now there was actually some wealth. It wasn't a ton of wealth, but there was some wealth there. And what we're seeing today is the wealth is incredible in some cases. And there's nothing that will make people fight more than money. Mm-hmm. So I would say that is probably the number one driver that I see is just the amount of money that is in play now. And the unfortunate part with agriculture is that a lot of farm families have almost all of their wealth in the farm. It's not that often that you see a bunch of wealth parked outside the farm. I would say the exceptions to that are farms that are in and around heavily populated areas. So I don't know if you see that around here. You probably do. But I know if you're in and around a major city and you've been selling off a quarter here and there to the city, sometimes there's significant wealth that's parked outside the operation. But in general, if you're out in nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, you probably haven't had that luxury, and so most of the money is invested in the farm. And in order for the farm to be successful, quite often all the money has to stay invested in the farm. And so that becomes really challenging for people with their estate plans, because you got 4 kids, let's say, and one of them is going to farm and the other 3 aren't. How do you give something in your estate to the other 3 children and not cripple the farm in the process? So that's one of the number one things that we would struggle with trying to figure out in the estate planning portion of the succession plan. I want to clarify something, though. An estate plan is not a succession plan. So if you are out there and you've done an estate plan and you think you're done, I would consider talking to somebody else and going a little deeper in the process, because that's only one component of a succession plan, in my opinion. So, all right, we caught you up a little bit.
You did. You most certainly did. Well, I would like to, of course, extend a big thank you to Stuart and Travis. I am actually leading the Bridging the Gap farm transition sessions that Farm Management Canada deliver. We have 7 that's going to be happening across the country after Christmas. So you can hop on our website and find the dates. They are a fantastic session. It's one day. I love the approach that Farm Management Canada takes. The families come together. They attend the session together. We bring in the experts like MNP, lawyers, business advisors. We had a great tax session in Red Deer last week with 200 farmers. It's a very emotional journey, and we understand that, and we want to be there to support you. You're not alone. As you heard, this 12% has a plan. So we have resources on our Farm Management Canada website just to get you going and to start you get introduced to the world of farm transition. And of course, these gentlemen are here if you have any questions as well. And thank you so much for sharing, and thank you, MMP.